Our CBS News poll. Joining us now to help us break it down is CBS News Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, good morning. Great to have you here at the table.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Well, you have some fairly pessimistic news for us, I know, but is inflation still the #1 electoral issue for Americans?
So much of this is about inflation. That view of the nation that you described at the top is driven by concerns about inflation. So much of these views of the economy are driven by concerns about inflation. In fact, the number who say that the economy is bad is now the highest it's been during the Biden administration. And then recently, we see people reacting to the drop in the stock market, where now they're pessimistic about both the market and maybe their retirement. So all of that is piling on, and the longer that it goes, you see people becoming more pessimistic that it can be reversed. Having said all that, Margaret, I do need to point out a couple of optimistic things. One is the jobs market. People are optimistic that they can find a job in their area. And then the other part is, you have to say, after 2 years of a pandemic and all the losses, people are starting to feel optimistic about that effort as we head into the summer.
So how are Americans assessing the president's performance?
Well, on inflation, it's not good. His handling of inflation and his ratings for that are low. But there's another component of this, and that is a majority of the public, 2/3, feel like the administration has been slow to react, or slow to react to events as they come up. Of course, that's been a critique on inflation and on other matters. It's also starting to stick a little among his party, among Democrats, who are also now more likely to say that, and then that the economy is bad. So that's tough politically. And, I think coming into this, we saw numbers where people were expecting him to be effective, and now those ratings are low. So it's that setup of expectations here, because people reason backwards from results. If they don't see results on inflation, then he pays a political price.
What about the parties themselves? Do Americans think they're talking enough about the issues that actually matter to them?
Well, in a word, no. You're seeing the party primaries play out in state after state around the country now. And yes, the candidates are forced to speak to their bases in those places. But something that both Democrats and Republicans share is that they want those potential nominees to talk about inflation. And maybe by virtue of the fact that they're not talking about it enough, the parties are actually even on this. The Republicans don't have a large advantage on handling inflation, right? Even though the Democrats are the party in power. But after that, the bases really diverge. You have to point out the Democrats are very concerned about the potential overthrow of Roe v. Wade, and they want their candidates to talk about that and abortion rights. And then the Republicans are having this split, and it's really important as people watch this go forward, over former President Trump. You've got half of Republicans who say they want their candidates to talk about being loyal to the former president. You've got nearly half who say that they want to basically relitigate 2020 and talk about what they feel was a rigged election, even though that's been disproven. So you've got the other half of the Republicans that don't want that. And that's an inter-party fight that you're seeing play out in race after race, state after state right now.
So what we are also seeing here is voters feel the parties are dividing them, not just along partisan lines, but demographic lines. Explain that.
Yeah, it starts with the views of the partisans. When you look at Democrats and you look at things like what's happening in America is going through cultural change, going through demographic change. Democrats think that's a good thing. They think increasing diversity is a good thing, that immigrants contribute to the country. Republicans disagree, and by and large think that that diversity is not a good thing. That's then reflected in what you hear from the candidates and what you hear from the debate in these primaries. There's something else too, and that is we asked people to just label the parties. And a majority said they thought the Republicans were extreme, but far less than a majority said they described the Democrats as effective, and they're the party in power. So I think when you go forward into these midterms, you're looking at that. If the Republican label of extreme doesn't come down, they may not do as well as in the midterms as they could. And for the Democrats as the party in power, they need to get that effective number up to stay in.
Fascinating snapshot of the country. Anthony Salvanto, thank you.
Thank you.